Welcome, everybody. I'm Brad Brown here with Joe Lossett, and we are bringing you the final match of the NRG Series MTGO Invitational. It's going to be David Lam versus Phil Silberman. Yesterday, you saw Zoe and Phil. Phil took that match down, and then previously we saw David play against Justin on Humans. Why don't you talk a little bit about David and how he ultimately got into this final, Joe?
Okay, so David Lam's route to get to the finals, which this is so cool that we're in the finals. This event has been really neat. I've enjoyed it a lot, and also compared to like a normal finals that's at the end of a long day of broadcasting and we're kind of tired, we're doing this split up, so I'm full of energy. This is awesome. I can be annoying, and I won't wear down. It'll be great. So David, who also did not wear down, battled through every round of the event. He played Connor Mullally, playing Teamer Urza in the first round. No problem there. Did drop a game, which he did not do in the second round against Blair Splett playing Junts. David swept him. No problem. And then, like you said, he played Justin Brickman playing Humans in the round of 4, which David won 2-1. And that was actually game 3 of the match. It was very close. I did the pleasure of commentating on that one. And the last turns of the game came down to actually Keswick Malcontents making the game very close, but David was able to finish it off with Justin actually dying to his own Painlands. So David was able to advance on a pretty narrow margin, but he did earn his way into the finals.
Yeah, something to note there about David's path is that he beat kind of 3 mid-range decks. Humans can be a little bit of aggressive, but I still treat it personally as a little bit of a mid-range deck. It does play a long game, some number of times with things like Meddling Mage. But looking at Phil's path to the finals, he started off playing Adam on Jund, followed by Will Kruger on Neoform, and then Zoe Riederman on Mono Red Prowess. And so when he played Will and Zoe, those were two very fast decks that basically were just trying to get you dead in the first 2 or 3 turns. And now he's going to be facing off against David, who's on this kind of mid-range deck. We'll see how Phil's deck lines up against that. He's got a few dead cards in the main. But first, let's take a look at David's player profile slide.
David Lam on this side of the finals, a 27-year-old PhD candidate from Rosemead, California. He has 2 NRG top 8s in the last couple of years, although he has not actually won one of the events yet. So winning this match would be his first title for the Nerd Rage series. Previous Magic accomplishments: he has a Grand Prix top 8. He has had some success in Legacy, and he did manage the Day 2 Pro Tour Guilds of Ravnica. Started playing Magic when he was gifted a Force of Will. That's nice. I think I started playing Magic when a friend brought a revised starter deck that we split in half and broke 25 rules. Although I think most people start by breaking all the rules, not knowing what's going on. David, I'm sure, the same way. Avid Pokemon Go player when he's not playing Magic, so he's maybe that's the way he keeps himself fit. And his goal is to become a university professor focused on teaching.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. My wife is also an avid Pokemon Go player. Recently quit finally, but she was devoting so much time to that game. It was insane.
So I gave it a shot before the Pro Tour in Australia, back when this was like the first summer, the first fall when it really became popular, and I knew there was a unique Pokemon in Australia. So I was like, okay, I'll give myself a couple weeks, learn how this thing works, so I can go to Australia and get it and come back and people will be jealous. Well, I went, but no one in our Pro Tour group actually got the Australian Pokemon, so that kind of was anticlimactic.
Oh, no. That's great. So let's take a look at David's deck list here, see what he'll be piloting in the finals against Phil. What do you think are some important cards that David's hoping to draw in the early game against Phil?
Well, I think really the Matter Reshaper is the early game creature, but I don't think that's particularly helpful in this matchup because Phil's removal for the most part is going to exile. So Matter Reshaper is not going to have its dying trigger. So we're looking for a Thought-Knot Seer to strip cards away, and then Reality Smasher is obviously a huge threat, but Thought-Knot Seer and the Planeswalkers are really what I'm looking at. If David wins the game, I expect those cards to play a big role.
Now, Phil kind of went off the kind of normal deck list build here. He, instead of playing 3 Field of Runes, which is what I see most Bant Control players on, he's playing the 4 full copies. So that's going to play a big role, I think, in this matchup if he can keep David off Tron or keep him off a temple. That might come up.
It definitely could come up. Fortunately for David, he has 2 wastes, so he won't get completely blown out unless the game goes very long. I do think, though, it's not maybe as important as it is against, say, an aggressive deck for David to have his Tron disrupted. Here, Phil's going to be giving him time. So even if Tron doesn't come online, or a pair of Eldrazi Temples or whatever, doesn't get going for several turns, I think David will be able to recover from that.
Sure. Taking a look at Phil's player profile slide here. Phil is a 30-year-old data analyst from Chicago, Illinois. He has 2 NRG Series top 8s, and he's got 1 win on Legacy Storm. He was a 2019 championship competitor, an SCG Lewis Open top 8, and 2 SCG Classic wins. And we've talked about this fun fact every time that he's been on, but he's eaten 3 5-pound bags of gummy bears. And now the big question is, from all of us at the commentary, is what was the time frame on the 5-pound?
Yeah, because if it was like 10 years, then this isn't really a big deal. But also, you probably wouldn't mention it.
Yeah.
So maybe it was like 2 weeks.
So like one day is like insane. A weekend is probably still like pushing it for me. But if it was like over the course of a week, I'm like, yeah, I could probably do that.
A weekend would be pushing it for 15 pounds of gummy bears. I don't know that I agree with the premise here. A weekend seems ridiculous on itself. I mean, that's still 7 pounds a day of gummy bears. That's not happening. I mean, I'm not going to say it couldn't happen, but it's not happening.
So it sounds to me like he's just sat down at some point in his life 3 times and eaten a 5-pound bag of gummy bears.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if that's your thing, sure, go for it. I don't know. I can eat a couple gummy bears. It's not my favorite thing, but even my favorite thing, I'm holding myself beneath 7 pounds a day.
Sure. So looking at Phil's deck list, he's on Bant Control. We kind of talked about it a little bit. He's got the 4 copies of Field of Runes. Some of the power aspects of this deck that I really enjoy is the combination of Uro, Cryptic Command, and Mystic Sanctuary. Those 3 cards generate kind of a loop where you can tap your opponent's team, bounce your Sanctuary, attack with play your Sanctuary again, put Cryptic back up on top, attack with your Uro, redraw it, and you can just kind of keep this loop. So even if your opponent has like 3 or 4 death touch creatures, if you're like fully in control, that's a loop that you can just keep doing if you absolutely want to. There's
something I should mention here is because I said during David's profile that the Mana Reshapers wouldn't have too much of an impact because Path to Exile will get rid of them. But really, half of Phil's removal are Icefang Quaddle's blocking. So Mana Reshapers actually do have a decent chance of triggering.
Yeah, I actually think Mana Reshaper, a lot of people undervalue that card just as a beatdown creature. If you go turn 2, 3-2 on the play, and you just start swinging, and they take 6 damage off that card, that's a lot of damage that a single creature has done. And I think people underestimate that value that it can get. And then ideally later on, maybe it gets Verdict away, or an Icefang Quaddle has to block it, and then you still get your value off of it. Even if it's Path, I think a lot of the times you're not too sad because you still get your land. This isn't like a Swords deck or something along those lines. But it'll be interesting to see kind of how the removal lines up against the early aggression from David's deck, because I would put him as the aggressor in this matchup. He's got the big creatures. He's hoping to get the fast mana online, and Phil's trying to be the permission-based deck.
I agree with that. I also think that the Bant Control's plan when he gets to the later game is just to be, overpowering with its Planeswalkers and Cryptic Commands and stuff. But David has a lot of Planeswalkers also. So Phil might be slightly better off when we get to the late game, but not compared to like he would be against, say, Burn or any deck with Land or Elves, where your sweepers aren't going to be as effective against the Eldrazi, and the Planeswalkers are going to be kind of met by Planeswalkers from the other side.
Yeah, very true. One thing to note, too, is Uro being a 6/6, it will be larger than most of the creatures that David can put onto the battlefield. So he's going to be looking for some type of sideboard card to help with those Uros, I think, to make sure that they stay off the battlefield, or he has some way to deal with them. Maybe something like a Basilisk Collar or something along those lines.
Maybe, yeah. Uro's a house. Like, it's tough because even when you deal with it, it comes back, and it's coming back at value, and it's just hard to keep up. So we'll see. You're right. That's also an issue for the Eldrazi deck, where normally its creatures are bigger than whatever the opponent's bringing, and that's not the case here.
So yeah, let's jump into game one. We'll let you know that Phil is going to be on the play. And we will be watching from Phil's side. And this opening 7 was a quick mulligan by the looks of it.
Yeah, I think it was just Field of Ruin for mana. So this one looks totally fine. He uses some options of what he puts back here. Maybe Teferi, as that's just a later game card.
Yeah,
but
Snapcaster Mage
this is cool.
Also a reasonable consideration to put back there. He's only got the Charm. That's essentially a 5 mana investment as well. But if he ever picks up like a Path Exile, I think the Snapcaster Mage will be most important. So I do agree putting the Teferi back.
How cool is it? This is the start of the finals. This event's been going on for a couple weeks now, and we're at the end. Like, I don't even know if I'm happy about that, but it's still exciting.
Yeah, you mentioned as a commentator it was a different experience just because, we've been doing these, we've been recording these over the course of, weeks, and, I haven't seen this match. We're still doing it live in some sense, but it's been a really interesting and unique experience, and I've definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah. So as for viewers' knowledge, so the deck lists were private in this event, although given that we're in the finals now, the possible the players know each other is running. But Brad and I do not know the outcome of this match, despite the fact that it was recorded sometime in the past. We are commentating. We're laying down the commentary for these live as we move through them.
So here's that turn 2 Matter Reshaper. Now it was on the draw, and it's gonna line up pretty poorly against Path. But if it does get Path, I think David's probably still happy about it.
Yeah, and in this case, Phil decided not to Path at the end step, and then now is going to want to hold up mana for Archmage. Actually, I take that back. No, yes, he can cast Archmage Charm because of the Astrolabe, so he's holding that available.
And he might even take some damage off this Matter Reshaper, just so he can maybe Path a big thing, and then later on he can Snapcaster Path another big thing, and then block with the Snapcaster Mage if he wanted to.
Yeah, this is so David passes the turn without doing anything, and we'll see if Phil's willing to commit the Archmage Charm to draw cards here, and he is not.
As you mentioned, Karn is probably something he wants to make sure he keeps off the battlefield, so just having a counterspell for that is going to be important.
Yeah, I agree there. David can't currently cast any of his Planeswalkers, but one land drop will turn on the Great Creators, and that's something that, you're right, Phil is not going to want to have to deal with.
Now, he did play this Astrolabe pre-combat, which forced him into shocking in the breeding pool. So there was a 2-life cost there just to draw that extra card, which I think if he just would have played breeding pool the next turn, he could have potentially, just cast the Astrolabe and still been up his card.
He also, could he have just played the Astrolabe first and then play the Misty Rainforest instead?
Yeah, but I think he wants to save the Misty for a Sanctuary.
Sure. So Reality Smasher gets countered by that Charm, and you're right about Matter Reshaper coming down on turn 2 and getting through 3 swings now.
Yeah, it adds up. I think people definitely underestimate its value, as long as it comes down early.
Actually, I take that back. Was it just 2 swings plus fetch land damage?
I think we're on turn 5, so yes. So far, it's only been 2 swings. All right.
Now the Smasher countered. Jay's coming down to reset the Reshaper, and this will, if there's not a significant threat from David here, he's going to fall pretty far behind.
So it seems to me that he wants to play something that can get value with the Path. So Reality Smasher being the best creature, but if he has something like Planeswalker here, that's going to be good as well. So this is good because now he's forced to discard a card and lose a little bit of value.
But and he's going to take. I guess he has to fetch, and I suppose he could get Mystic Sanctuary here if he wanted to put back the Charm.
Right, and I think that's a really good play because then he paths. He puts the Uro into the graveyard most likely. He gets to draw the Archmage's Charm to counter the next thing, all while having an active Jace.
Puts the Uro into the graveyard on the trigger. I don't know that that's entirely fair. This trigger is supposed to be beneficial for David, and in this particular scenario, I think Phil is perfectly happy with this exchange. That Uro was kind of stuck in his hand because he was never going to commit mana to it main phase.
Yeah, he was a little ways off from that for sure. A fetch land here gets him the Uro back if he wants to get rid of the Path to Exile.
Well, let's see. He's certainly got options now. The counters, the mana leak goes back as it's slowly trending towards ineffectiveness. But Archmage's Charm is looking strong. Yeah, so the Uro stays in the graveyard for now.
Yeah, if he would have hit another land, I think he could have safely escaped the Uro. Like if there was another land in those top three, because he could have put a land back on top, played one, brought Uro back, drew the land, put it into play, and still been able to Archmage's Charm.
Yeah, I agree. From here, okay, so the Matter Shaper comes back down, does not get countered, which is understandable. Especially, so probably, I mean, if you're going to have to end up killing it later on, maybe you counter it now.
Ooh,
but
Scavenger
Phil might be,
Grounds.
That actually is really significant. I was going to say Phil might be planning on just being able to block it with Uro, and that actually is completely disrupted by the Scavenger Grounds, which can destroy the graveyard, although it needs to be done soon if it's going to happen.
So we pick up a copy of Field of Ruin. Now Tron is not online yet.
This is one, two, yeah. So one card needs to go to the graveyard in order for the Uro to be cast, and if the fetch land is broken, we might see David activate the Scavenger Grounds in response.
Yeah, there's no way that Phil can get around the Scavenger Grounds this turn.
All right, so here we have the fetch. Is David on top of this? Let's see if there's an activation here. That kind of feels like there needs to be.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So this is heads up.
All right, so Scavenger Grounds, sacrifice a desert, blow away the graveyard. And, okay, Phil is going to Snapcast to the Path of Exile while it's still in the graveyard with the Scavenger Grounds on the stack.
Yeah, making sure he gets his value, still protects his Jace.
And still holds up mana for Archmage's Charm on going into the next turn.
Which David does know about, so he can, if he wants to deploy a threat, he can deploy his worst threat.
He might know about it. Maybe he thinks Jace, put it back and then shuffled it away.
That's fair.
That it's not. I don't think David would assume for a second that happened.
I can't imagine anyone putting back Archmage's Charm and shuffling it, but
that card is pretty irritating. It's surprisingly good for a triple blue card. Well, I guess Astrolabe went a long way towards making it more playable.
So here's Tron, but he might just get something like what's the uncounterable land?
Cavern of Souls?
Cavern of Souls, yes.
That would be good if there was another Reality Smasher.
He does.
I don't know that
he does get the Tron online, though.
I don't know that Tron normally plays Cavern of Souls.
They do.
Let's take a look here. You're right. They do. There is one copy. Yeah. So David with a ton of mana all of a sudden. Let's see. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 mana. So almost any two cards in the deck can be played right now, and he has 3. So if there are... What David really needs to have here is 2 relevant cards. If he doesn't, he's going to have a hard time catching up.
He has to be careful because depending on what he deploys, he also doesn't want to just get it Jace bounced. So this is where Matter Shaper is at its worst. It's turn 7 at this point, and you're putting a 3/2 on the battlefield. And you can see Phil ready to counter.
Yeah. I almost would have... Well, okay, the Karn was too strong of a threat. Karn Liberated was a must counter in the first place. If the other card that David has was maybe the Great Creator or a Thought Seer or something, I would have liked to see that played before the Matter Shaper, because the idea being, well, I'll lead with Matter Shaper, maybe it'll get countered. But by playing the Matter Shaper first, but David playing it first, Phil knows I can counter the only relevant spell coming down this turn because Matter Shaper just doesn't count as something that, I don't care about this.
Right, and if he plays so what Joe's saying is if he plays the Karn first, it puts Phil on a decision point. Is something better going to be played if I counter this Karn?
Right, that was what I intended to say, and I kind of boggled the explanation a little bit. But yeah, the Karn Liberated was just too strong to lead with, so David did it the only way he probably could have, and it's now with another Archmage Charm. This is, it wasn't looking good, and now it's looking worse.
A little bit of banter going on in the chat between the two players. Love to see it. These players have a very friendly rapport with one another, so don't take that too seriously, viewers.
Who even uses Magic Online chat? I see people on Twitter all the time posting screenshots of conversations like, their opponent was aggressive or rude, any sort of thing, upsetting conversation, and I just don't get it. Magic Online has a feature. You can just not have chat.
Yeah.
I turned it off immediately as soon as they introduced this a couple years ago. And all the people, and it's the same people all the time posting these shots, and it's just you don't have to do this.
Well, you see, Joe, sometimes the screenshots get you what are called followers on Twitter.
Yes. No, I'm aware. I understand. The reason the chat is still, the screenshots are being done is like, hey, acknowledge that this is happening to me. But I don't know. I don't buy the frustration of it.
Sure.
I probably just made some new enemies by saying that, but,
So Matter Shaper is going to come in and try to attack the Jace, and we see that Snapcaster Mage is going to trade, so pretty much playing out how we thought. Finds an Expedition map for free here. Let's put that on the battlefield.
That's
so again,
not a whole,
that
not a
could get a Cavern, though, which turns off these Archmage's charms.
That's true. Cavern into Reality Smasher would kill the Jace, and really that's the most important thing going on right now. I wonder if we'll see a draw on Archmage. Is it Archmage or Archmage?
I think it's Archmage's charm.
Okay.
But I don't think you're wrong to say Archmage's charm either.
I think we'll see one draw here because Phil needs cards in the graveyard for the Uro, and he just needs, like you're saying, he needs something to do if Cavern of Souls comes in and he can't counter the creatures.
Yeah, really looking for probably another copy of Path to Exile. Maybe something like Force of Negation just to protect against another 4-mana Karn. Or something along those lines.
David searched up Blast Zone. So are we're going to go directly after the Jace then, I guess, at some point.
So Ghost Quarter is going to take care of a breeding pool. And we're going to get an island here.
What was...
If anything, I think Phil was happy that happened because it added a card to the graveyard.
Yeah. I wonder what the reasoning was there for David. I don't see it myself.
So Phil is going to brainstorm rather quickly, and I would have probably paused based on the fact that he drew Cryptic Command Path to Exile and said maybe I should start Fate Sealing. But he's going to go for the value. And now he's going to have Uro plus Cryptic Command in play, which is fantastic. So maybe something like a Force of Negation would be pretty important just so, he can Cryptic plus Force something if he needs to. But
yeah, that would be more than enough to lock the game up. I think he already has things well in hand, but you're right. He is not bulletproof at this point.
David does have 2 cards in hand, so if they're 2 relevant spells, he might have a chance here. All His Dust would be a good one, but it would be able to get countered.
Yeah, so, and there is Ugin. Ugin also a good one, although even that would be limited on how much we actually accomplish here.
Yep. So, David loses game 1. Phil picks up game 1 here, and we're going to talk to you about our wonderful sponsor, KMC. This brand of sleeves I've been using for years and years and years. I can't ever imagine using something else. I love matte sleeves, and their hyper mattes are just some of the best products around. I cannot stress enough how wonderful this brand of sleeves is. And if you want to support them and the series, head on over to KMC Sleeves on Facebook. Or if you have any questions, you can contact customer service at kmcsleeves.com for more information about how you can get these sleeves in your store if they're not there already.
All right, so moving on to the sideboarding here, is David has got some work to do to take down this match, being down a game here. And as far as sideboarding goes, he doesn't have really much to do. Most of what he's got to work with are wish targets for Karn the Great Creator. So all we're going to see is one Sorcerer Spyglass coming in to replace one Dismember.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me. I know when I was playing Eldrazi Tron against all of these graveyard-style decks, including now with the Uros, I think bringing in one Relic is perfectly fine. You definitely don't want to bring in all of them, and you don't want to bring in the Tormod's Crypt as well. But having an early Relic just to start eating cards out of the graveyard early is so important sometimes against the Uro, Snapcaster, Mystic Sanctuary deck, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really, losing the graveyard is a significant problem for the Bant Control deck. It does run into the Chalice of the Voids that David is also playing, but still, I mean, David going first, I mean, yeah, if you see a Relic in your opening hand, that's great. Doesn't mess up your curve at all, and it provides a meaningful resource as the game goes along.
So on Phil's side, he's going to make just a few changes himself. He's going to bring in the Disdainful Stroke, a Dovin's Veto, and a Monastery Mentor, and he's going to board out the 2 Supreme Verdicts and a Force of Negation. Now, this is an interesting sideboard strategy from my point of view, because I would think Supreme Verdict's actually a reasonable card in this matchup. But if you're going to bring in Monastery Mentor as a potential win condition, they get a lot worse, right?
Well, I don't even know if I'd say a lot worse, because your mentor is going to be probably a late game aspect route to victory, and even if it's early game, the mentor provides a lot of defense if it gets going. So you maybe can get David to commit a lot more to the board before casting Supreme Verdict. I'm surprised as well. I did not expect this with Teferi Time Raveler allowing Supreme Verdict to flash in to even pick off Haste Reality Smashers as they're cast. It seems like a somewhat valuable resource, and yeah, I don't know. I'm a little surprised.
Yeah, Phil must have a specific game plan in mind. I mean, one thing to note is these Supreme Verdicts, take up your turn at sorcery speed unless you have the Teferi, or your opponent can play around them, and then you end up verdicting, and they land something like a Karn, and you don't have a Force of Negation for it because he's actually boarding out one. So Phil has a game plan in mind. You can very much tell based on his sideboard plan, and we'll just have to see if it works out for him. So let's jump down into game 2, and David will be on the play.
All right, let's go, David. I want a 3-game match. Let's get it down. Let's get it done. Going first, let's go.
So I think one of the best hands that David could have would be Eldrazi Temple, Cavern, Chalice, Reality Smasher. Maybe if you want to get perfect, his first card would be a Relic. That would be his best hand.
That would be excellent. It's gonna take quite a bit, as Phil's hand is pretty solid.
All right.
We have Teferi, Time Raveler. We have both Teferis, which can deal with Chalice of the Voids that are a nuisance, and also both just reset kind of the first creatures down. This is a hand I'd be pretty happy about if I was Phil.
And there's a Force of Negation that will stop any Chalice coming down this turn. There's a Cavern. Man, am I calling it? I haven't even seen this footage.
Temple, Cavern, and the ability to get another Temple. You nailed it as far as the mana development goes.
Does he have a Chalice, though? Because you really want a Reality Smasher on 3 with a Chalice on 1 so they can't path it. But
well, he gets that by default because Phil doesn't have a path.
Sure.
Although he is going to have a... Ooh. So...
He will have a Quaddle that will have Death Touch.
I am surprised that the Breeding Pool is the play, not the Flooded Strand.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was a Misty. You're right. The Breeding Pool will... Well, the Flooded Strand could do it. Yeah, you would get like a Plains, and then you could... You
could get another island.
Sure,
it wouldn't matter.
Sure.
I'm willing to say that I'm shocked that Phil shocked and put in the Breeding Pool.
And there's the punishment.
This is exactly what... I mean, playing the Flood Strand here allows the Quaddle to just... Am I missing something here?
You are not missing anything, sir. He's just going to flash it in and not block. And I think that this turn we'll just probably bounce the Reality Smasher, and then we'll have the block on the way back down if we want.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like 9 damage that we didn't need to take, which is quite a bit.
We picked up a Path to Exile, and that'll do it too.
Sure. Okay, so...
Now another Reality Smasher here would be...
tremendous.
It'd be great. I mean, Phil's got answers to it, but...
Yeah. Well, but still, it's...
I mean, turn 3 Smasher into turn 4 Smasher is really hard for decks to beat.
Definitely. Anything following up here would be great. Maybe not an expedition map, but let's see. What do you have, David? Something. Actually, well, at this point in the turn, it's going to be what? Matter Reshaper or nothing?
Yeah. I mean, if he still has land, which he's
third
got
temple.
Another temple, wow. He could play something like a Thought-Knot Seer. Mindstone. Yep. So he had kind of one aggressive piece, and it looks like he's lacking kind of some follow-up on that.
Yeah.
Now, the Mindstone will still allow David to pop the Expedition map. You could get something like a Scavenging Grounds. We're going to go Walking Ballista for 1. Makes a lot of sense to get the Quaddle out of the way, since it is representing the Death Touch now.
Could we... This was an interesting way to develop here. We could have just played Ballista for 2.
Right.
Instead of the rest of those cards, and then been able to shoot the Quaddle and still have the threat on the board.
I wonder if there was some consideration for like mana leak. Like he played the Mind Stone, maybe hoping that it would get leaked, or the map. I don't know if that's what David was maybe thinking about.
Maybe. I mean, that's possible, but then still the Ballista still would have been countered by mana leak, although there was more permanence on the board, so I guess something was accomplished. But yeah, I question a couple Phil's turn 2, I would need to hear a reason as to why that wasn't just a mistake. And David's turn, this turn, okay. You're right. Maybe he was trying to bait certain things. Maybe he was hoping the Expedition map would get countered. David just having drawn a path Phil having drawn a path was not ideal for David. Maybe he expected that there wouldn't be any sort of disruption coming in.
Now, I love Teferi Time Rambler in this deck. For one of the big reasons is just bouncing your own Astrolabe here, so it ultimately nets you 2 cards, and that's what we're going to see. There is a Force of Negation backup if he needs it. If something like Karn 4 comes down.
Yeah. Phil is very well protected from Planeswalkers now. So David, with only 1 card in hand, is really going to need creatures for the rest of this game to be able to break through, I think.
Phil trying to decide what land to get here. Going to go with that island. It had to be a snow-covered permanent if you wanted to put that Astrolabe back in play. So
I just think Quaddle is just so good against creature decks.
It really is.
It doesn't matter if you're playing Modern or Legacy. It's just so good.
Phil has 6 cards in his hand still.
All right. So what can David muster here? It's okay.
So we're going to play Thought-Knot Seer without the Cavern, which, I mean, I guess is fine because Phil's tapped out. I guess he doesn't have to vote the land there. That makes sense.
Right.
So do you just take Teferi 5?
I think, well, it's either that or Quaddle. I think you just leave the counters because there's a pair of them. I'm not sure. Neither card is good for David. I think, I don't know. I think you take Teferi and then go back in time and play your Ballista for 2 instead of 1, so you can shoot the other Ballista.
So I think you take Teferi. The big reason why is the untap ability would allow him to play Teferi and still have both Quaddle and Mana Leak up, and that is just not good news for you if that happens.
Yeah, definitely. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria is, okay, we have a follow-up.
Chalice for 2. That's going to get forced. That makes sense. The Mana Leak would have been a dead card if that Chalice came down anyway. There's no thing, you don't Chalice check on Magic Online. It's always going to counter it. Players can't miss that. So.
Yeah, well, David did a good job. I mean, David has no cards left, but he did a good job of clearing out the relevant cards from, well, at least a lot of cards from Phil's hand.
Now imagine
Quaddle
if
still hanging
He
out.
still had a ballista here, which I don't know that he would have necessarily. The path might have went after the ballista instead. It's hard to know, but it would definitely spell good news for him being able to attack this Teferi down.
So let's see, what are we drawing into here? Okay, 4th Temple. Why not have the full set? Or was that just clicking off one of the previous ones?
I think that was the previous one,
Yeah, okay.
Trying to think what you could get here. He doesn't have anything. What's the one where if you have no cards in hand, you get to draw a card? I can't remember the name of it.
I don't remember off the top of my head because that's not a card that I ever felt like was playable in Green Tron.
It's definitely playable in Eldrazi Tron as a utility land. I've definitely registered the card. I've activated it many times, and it certainly would have been good here.
Yeah, so we're seeing Coil come down. David has a card in hand, but whatever it is could be countered if it needed to be. And so
we're going to Ghost Quarter in response.
This is the second Ghost Quarter that in the match that didn't seem to really matter.
And we're going to get a Forest. Man, that Uro.
Oh, the Uro. Forget the Uro. This is, the Icefang Quaddle just dominating the game. I would have liked to have seen, I think, this Mind Stone activate beforehand.
Sure. Try to hit something like a Walking Ballista.
Yeah.
Well, now between Charm and Dovin's Veto, Phil's got answers to just about everything he needs to.
Yep. Now he's going to pad the life total a little bit.
And there's another copy of Teferi.
Yep, that's going to be real good. It's not going to make it down quite yet, but are we... Yeah, we're just sitting here. We have Fairy Time Reveler protecting us.
David needs like 2 copies of Thought-Knot Seer at this point in order to deploy.
Yeah. And now he needs more than that.
Yeah.
Well, David Lam, congratulations on making it to the finals, but your run may be over here. It's not looking good for David to get his first NRG championship.
Yeah, there's
still hope.
This Bant deck continues to impress me every time I watch it played.
We need solid creatures, or we need several planeswalkers in a row. And we're not there yet.
Well, Uro can come back now, and there really isn't a card in David's deck that really deals with Uro effectively, other than like All Is Dust.
All Is Dust would be excellent.
It's just never resolving.
I'm aware of that, but David has to continue playing with confidence that if I do something, maybe it'll work. So he just has to assume that Phil's currently holding 3 Path to Exiles and 4 lands. 5 lands would be better because maybe he would get a game loss for having 8 cards in hand, and that would get David back in. But
David is going to say good game to Phil. Phil's going to pick up and win the finals of this NRG Series MTGO Invitational.
Phil's the champion.
Congratulations, Phil. Amazing player. Like every time I watch him play, he's just, especially on Moto, like he makes so few mistakes. I think he just plays a lot of Magic Online. So real quick, before you guys all drop off, we do have a winner's interview with Phil, and we're going to show you that to you right now.
Alrighty, thanks guys. I'm here with Phil Silberman. Phil, a former NRG Series trial winner, and now the NRG Series MTGO Invitational winner. Tell me how it feels.
Feels great. No other way to put it. It was a really, really fun tournament to compete in, and loved playing it from the comfort of my own home, of course. But yeah, it feels awesome.
So tell us about your deck. You played the Bant Snow Control deck. So tell us what you thought about the deck, why you chose it, and what was your preparation going into the tournament?
So basically, I think Uro is is sort of in the process of taking over this format. I think it's one of the most powerful build-around cards available. The opportunity cost is super low, and it just happens to slot in extremely well with the Snow Matters cards, which were already proven to be an exceptionally powerful part of the metagame. So my thought was I wanted to build I wanted to play an Uro deck that was flexible and powerful and had access to basically Mystic Sanctuary. At the last paper event that NRG held, I played a Sultai Uro deck, which I thought was phenomenal. A little bit weak against big mana strategies, and then immediately after that, big mana strategies got nerfed when Once Upon a Time got banned. So from that point, I wanted to build. I knew I loved playing these Uro decks with Mystic Sanctuary and Cryptic Command and Archmage's Charm and all these sort of things. I was just looking for the best third color to pair with it. The reason white appeals the most, because I think red is quite good as well, especially with Red and 6 and Lightning Bolt. What white offers specifically in the power of Path to Exile and the white Planeswalkers and Supreme Verdict, it's going to set you up really well against aggressive decks. You have as many white sideboard cards as you want against red decks, especially between Timely Reinforcements, Celestial Purge, all that sort of nonsense. But having Path to Exile for other Uro decks, especially, which I didn't play against at all, but I thought would be really, really important. As good as Fatal Push and Thoughtseize are, I think they are, on the whole, less powerful in the current state of Modern. And I think the Planeswalkers are just very obviously generically powerful. Teferi just instantly wins any blue mirror. Big Teferi just shuts the door on anyone faster than almost any other card. And yeah, the sideboard cards. I love the white sideboard cards. But yeah, I think the Uro deck is it's a deck that is not going to have a bad matchup really against that much. Just because of how strong the average card is in the deck. And it has just such an incredible late game because of Mystic Sanctuary and Uro.
So one of the stories of the tournament was that round one match between you and Adam Rashig on Jund, where you ended up milling yourself out in game one and then squeaking under the clock to finish the match in 3 games. Tell us a little bit about what was going through your mind during that match.
I a lot of things, honestly. One is that it's just so hard to keep up the number of decisions you had to make. Upon rewatching that match, I found 2 or 3 really egregious errors I made that really drove me crazy watching again. A couple of which I did notice even at the time, where I was like, oh crap. I mean, I thought the match was incredible. It was a really, really fun match to play. It's crazy that I want to at least say it didn't really come down to time. I did have lethal. I was gonna kill him, but the critical turn in game 3 where I basically chump attacked into a Liliana to kill it, and he could have killed me if he didn't respect Path to Exile, which was such a tough decision from Adam's perspective. He chose to respect Path to Exile, and that gave me just the extra turn I needed to come back into game. It was just so close. There were so many decisions from both ends. I thought it was one of the more fun matches I played in a while. I will say that much. I had such a good time. Adam played super well. But I think the time was certainly. I played a lot of these decks, both in paper and on Magic Online. These sort of really slow, grindy decks, and especially on Magic Online, I feel like I've gotten very good at yielding to triggers, getting ready for things, just making sure that there's almost nothing stopping me from executing what I need to do as quickly as possible. Adam just sort of got a little bit unlucky, I think, that he had maybe didn't set as many auto yields that I did, or had too many stops. I don't know. I thought it was just overall just an extremely fun match that I can look back on and realize that a lot of people would play that game, those games very different from both seats, and that's great Magic right there.
So you mentioned how the timing works differently in Magic Online than a paper tournament. Is that something you prefer, the chess clock style, or do you prefer kind of the flow of a paper game?
I think overall, I prefer playing in paper. I really like the social nature of it. I really like just talking to another person. And I like holding cards. I'm one of those people who just shuffles cards all the time, even at home. I have a deck of cards on my desk right now that I just will shuffle. But I think the chess clocks are very good in a different sense. It would be cool if it was possible to have chess clocks in paper. I don't think it is. I don't think we should even try to do it. But I do like the aspect of there is an equal amount of time for both players, which isn't always the case. I mean, this happened to everyone. You play against someone, they happen to play very slowly. You feel like they use 2/3 of the clock. In situations like that where it ends in a draw, it feels awful. like you weren't given the fairest stake in that regard. So I think fair. But so I think the chess clocks are, I think they're good personally. I understand they can be frustrating, especially for like infinite combos and stuff like that. But as a result, I just bias towards not playing those decks. And because it's just too annoying, like I wouldn't play a devoted druid deck. They just drive me crazy. Or back when you had to like Viscera Seer and like stack your entire deck, like no, it's just too much. It's too much to do. So I think it does impact your decision making and deck building in that regard, which you could argue is a positive or negative. I don't really know. But yeah, overall I prefer paper, but I think the chess clocks are something that I've gotten used to, and I think it is an equitable system.
So for this tournament specifically, where you're playing a more controlling type deck that's going to take up more clock, would you play more threats, for example, in an online deck than a paper deck in order to avoid any clock nonsense?
Um, it's a consideration. It's certainly a consideration. I didn't really consider it for this tournament. My experience playing this deck beforehand was I played one league, went 1/3 drop, and like changed 5 cards and locked it in. That was it. And but one of the changes I made was I did add another threat, which I think was not necessarily a consideration for online Magic, just consideration for deck building. Like I had 2 Uros before, I had 3 afterwards. But I think it's something that should be considered, especially for people who are less experienced in Magic Online. But in general, I don't know. I don't get that close to like the end of the clock very often unless there's significant lag involved. And that's not any deck's problem. That's the program's problem. That's I can't control that. I've certainly had that happen. I think everyone's had that happen if they played enough Magic Online. It's infuriating. But no, I think. Yeah, I think in general you can consider the idea of playing a little bit more of a threat dense strategy, or playing like one extra thing like in your control decks in order to speed things up. But I try to avoid it just to be as to build as good of a deck as possible. Like if I can avoid crutches, I tend to in my deck building.
Sounds good. So you played this Bant deck. You said you played one league before it.
Yep.
Now you came up with this this build to win the tournament. Where does this deck go from here? Especially with what we see in Ikoria, presumably companions coming in, the rise of humans again. Where does the Bant build go from here?
Oh boy, it's tough. It's really tough because I really just don't know how much companions are going to change. Modern, I think they're going to change it so much more significantly. Well, I think the very powerful ones are really going to change how we build these decks. Like normally I would think that like I think the companion was a Lurrus, the black white one. Like I think that's going to find a spot in Modern almost immediately. Although you just can't play with Uro, so that's a problem. You're not going to find the space for it there. I think the one that most interests me is the one that says you have to start with at least 80 cards. I think like it's correct in general to build a 60 card deck, right? But I think there's a lot of deck building space available now, and that there's a specific reason to play that card. It's pretty interesting to me to try and work under the constraint of, instead of playing this 60 card deck, I'm going to play an 80 card deck, because there's no shortage of good cards you can play. I recently saw Sam Black take on this Teamer Uro deck where he was like, yeah, I kept running out of fetchable lands, and that drove me crazy, so I'm just going to play 4s of all the cards I want and all the lands I want, and I'm going to make the distribution where I want it to be lands to spells, and it ended up with like a 76 card deck. And with that, 4 more cards, I can add 4 more cards. That's not a problem. So I think I think this Uro-based mid-range strategies are not going away. They can't. Uro is too powerful. Mystic Sanctuary is too powerful. They're going to have spots in Modern for the time being. I mean, like recently, the Niv Mizzet deck has gotten very popular, just because, again, the strength of Uro. Weirdly, not Mystic Sanctuary, which I still think is busted. But I think the combination there is not getting any less powerful, and if anything, adding companions will only enhance the shells there. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think everyone can agree whether or not whether you like Ikoria or not from what you've seen there. It's going to be super interesting as far as deck building.
Well, we're looking to see where it goes, especially with you in this Bant Control deck. You took this Bant Control deck all the way to the top of this event, and as part of that, the NRG Series has donating $100 to the charity of your choice. Phil, tell us a little bit about which charity you chose and why their mission's important to you.
Absolutely. So I chose the Chicago Community Bond Fund. It's an activist organization located in Chicago, focusing specifically on incarcerated people and the incarceration system, and specifically Chicago right now, Illinois. But I think it is such a big deal to fund the efforts of this organization and other such activist organizations. Incarcerated people are at such a high risk for COVID. I believe it is the worst. I believe the two worst outbreaks in the country right now are in Rikers Island in New York and Cook County Prison in Illinois. Say what you will about the sort of a lot of the politics behind this, but I think we have to address this as a public health crisis, and you have to treat incarcerated people as people. And I think funding that sort of thing is really, really, really important. And drawing attention to sort of the mistreatment of these people is a big deal for me, especially during this pandemic.
Well, thanks so much, Phil, and I'm sure that organization will appreciate it as well. Any last shout outs you want to give to anybody that you tested with, or anybody that you want to say hi to at home?
Sure, I want to. I definitely want to shout out all my Chicago Magic buddies. Hopefully they're tuning in, saying hi. But I do want to shout out. I think it's Doom Switch on Magic Online. I basically cribbed the deck from him and just played it, and I was like, oh, this deck's great. But yeah, he does a ton of work building these I should say these generally blue-white decks. But he did I believe him and like maybe Yuta Takahashi played this deck a lot on Magic Online. I really enjoyed the version that he ended up with. I think it's entirely where the list is from, but shouts to him. Shout out to all the Chicago Magic people, and shout out to Nerd Rage. Everything is great.
All right, Phil. Well, it was a pleasure having you in this tournament. We're looking forward to having you in the next one, whenever that is. And thanks for playing today.
Thanks, Max.
All right, we'll send it back to you guys.
Such a sweet interview. Thanks, Max, for putting that together. Really, really do appreciate it. Hope you all enjoyed it as well. As always, if you're looking to buy singles or sell cards, head on over to nerdragegaming.com. We do have buy list bonuses. If you end up selling us cards, you earn additional store credit. The more you sell, the more credit you earn. So head on over to nerdragegaming.com. Help support your local LGSs if you're in the Midwest. Help support organizations that are putting on tournaments like this, and it really does go a long way, and we appreciate all of the support that you guys have given us throughout this event and going forward.
So that's going to conclude the NRG Series MTGO Invitational. Congratulations to Phil Silberman. He wins $100 to give to whatever charity he likes during this time of pandemic. There's a lot of needy organizations out there, so good for him, and hopefully he's able to do something well with it. Thank you for joining us for this. This was a test event for us. This was our first MTGO event for the Nerd Rage series, and we learned some things. We liked some things that happened, and we're going to be continuing with events in the near future. We're going to take a little bit of time to kind of organize how we exactly want things to run in the future, but check out our social media in the coming weeks, and we expect to have something else running before the end of April. So hope you enjoyed what you saw. Nerd Rage Gaming, thanks for running this, and for Brad and myself, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple weeks with a whole new event.
See you guys soon.